Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month, and there's also a free trial option. And those links will be in the show notes, both on YouTube and on your podcast platform of choice. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family. Every team, every topic, everywhere. And I'm also appearing on the Horns Down podcast YouTube channel, discussing OU season every week, usually on Thursday or sometimes on Wednesday. Please like and subscribe to that YouTube channel. You can also find it on the Sooners 360 YouTube channel, and also please subscribe to that. So we're going to move on into the recruiting news and play a little bit of a catch up. So we've been gone the last couple of weeks due to spring break and some other stuff. So this is episode 121, post spring break catch up. So to the recruiting news, we'll start off. There's no new commitments for the Sooners, no decommits, and I don't believe there's been any commitments to players out to targets that OU was looking at. Not any big name targets, not anybody that I really anticipated OU being in the top 3 or 4. So we do have some forecasts to OU. There's no new names here, but just more names posting forecasts. So for Ryan Gilbert, Mason James, and Aljur Miles, 3 names that should be familiar to everybody at this point. Ryan Gilbert, the cornerback from Forney. Mason James, the very talented wide receiver from Norman North. And Aljur Miles, the big 6'3", 200-pound wide receiver from Kaufman. Who just this week posted on Twitter that he posted him running a 4.46 laser time in the 40, which would be, for his size, which would be, I know the NFL draft's coming up, and that would be at 6'3", 200 pounds of the 4.46. That's NFL Combine. That's good NFL Combine kind of numbers. So those 3 guys have been forecast by both Josh McCuistion at Sooner Scoop and Colin Kennedy over at OU 247. 2 guys, very respected in the industry who wouldn't reach out and just make those predictions without any backing. We also have some predictions from, I believe, Parker Thune from OU Insider, the OU rival side as well. Again, lots of sources there on that from the OU rival site. So those are 3 guys that I have basically had projected in most of my class predictions. I have one coming for you guys at the end of this week. A little bit, going to shake some things up there a little bit. So that's the forecast, OU, positive news. And I think most of those forecasts are not presuming that that those 3 players are going to drag out to June. In fact, Ryan Gilbert has set a commitment date for May, coming in May. So from that standpoint, I think OU's in a great position with those 3 guys. And those 3 players would be key additions in the recruiting class, especially Gilbert at cornerback. If OU only goes with one cornerback, I can see it being only Ryan Gilbert. They've signed 3 cornerbacks in the last class. Those guys are all off to very good starts and enrolling early in Norman. So there's a chance. And OU has Devin Jordan and Jeremiah Newcomb from the previous class, who both redshirted. So OU technically has 5 freshman cornerbacks. So I could see one cornerback being from the high school class, being what OU decides to do, depending upon who's available and who wants to be Sooners. So this podcast started following high school recruiting, but we'll follow the portal just as we've always have. And the portal news so far this week is that Jake Mayakula from Stanford visited this week. We know this. He posted stuff on social media. He's 6'5", 295, plays center. He can also play the guard spots. He has visited OU, but he's got other visits lined up. The problem here, I think, is going to be convincing Jake Mikula that backing up Troy Everett and then replacing Troy Everett maybe in 2026 is a better developmental plan than starting somewhere else. So it's going to take, pushing Bill's reputation and repertoire for developing offensive linemen. Maybe James Rouse helps with the conversation. I don't know. Obviously, Stanford's a little bit in disarray after their tight end. Sorry, after Andrew Luck fired their coach and they hired Frank Reich, I believe. So that's the specific portal news. We're expecting more portal traffic post the Crimson Combine and April 15th when the portal really kicks in gear at probably cornerback, tight end with the loss of Devon Mitchell and several other guys not really stepping up. There's probably room for another tight end. Running back is a maybe, although I've been hearing that the young running backs, that Sawchuck has had a good spring, Ekstrom's had a good spring, and Torrey Blaylock has also had a good spring. Taylor Tatum's been kind of banged up a little bit. But I've heard Torrey Blaylock's had a really good spring. So maybe running back. And again, with the injury news coming this week about Giovanni Gibson, still don't know the real time frame of when he'll be out. Still, some other wide receivers being banged up. No real clue on what the status of Jaden Gibson is. I could see OU reaching out for a wide receiver in the portal if the right guy's there. Back to high school recruiting. Now, obviously, OU's not playing a spring game, and they have decided to replace the spring game with the Crimson Combine. We've seen an email go out about what that really entails. It's a little mysterious. I'm not sure what we're going to get. But with it not being a real game, OU is not expecting that many visitors. I expect some in-state kids will come in. There'll be some traffic from guys that have previously visited OU. And according to various reports, that OU may get one official visit from Breck College, who's at IMG Academy in Florida. He's an offensive guard, 6'5", 300 plus. We'll see if that official visit goes off or not. He's told people he's taking it, so I have every reason to presume it will actually happen. In terms of quarterback recruiting news, we're still kind of in the standoff of Bo Bentley and Jaden O'Neal. So Bo Bentley last week competed in Florida at the Elite 11 Combine there. Not much news coming out of that Combine as far as he's concerned. No invite to the National Elite 11 event yet. Prior to going down there, he did make more news by announcing that he was down to LSU, UGA, and OU. And he has visits set for June for all three of those schools, including an official visit to OU on June 13th, where at this point in time, he's the only official visitor for that weekend. That's a little strange. Not quite sure what it means, how to interpret that at all, if to interpret it in any way. O'Neal competed at the Elite 11 event in Austin. He's also not received an invite to the national event yet. There's a little more buzz about him out of Austin, though. He just visited FSU and I think Auburn, although I didn't see any social media traffic on that. And I think this weekend for the Crimson Combine, he's supposed to be in Norman. So maybe we'll get some more clarity on that from Jaden O'Neal from his side about what's going on and where he really stands with the Sooners and where the Sooners stand with him. So that's sort of the recruiting news, the QB recruiting news. Let's talk about some players that have been to Norman in the last 10 days, sort of 2-week time frame. So this last weekend, the big names were, the first big name was Deuce Geralds, Devarian, that's his first name, Devarian Geralds from Georgia. He's a top 100 defensive tackle, 6'2", 270, super quick, very athletic. Seems to really like OU, seems to really like Ohio State as well. It could be a 3-team battle between them. He's named a top 8, but I think probably maybe Ohio State, Ole Miss, and OU are probably the top 3. He's been in Norman a bunch of times, but this is the first time he's been back to OU this year. So it was good to get him back on campus. If OU could beat Ohio State for Geralds, it would make D-line recruiting a little more interesting in terms of numbers and who OU would take. Continuing in 2026, Donovan Webb was on campus as well. Safety from Texas, 6'1", 180 pounds. Top 200 composite type player. Really good in coverage. Would fit the OU defense, would be a really good fit for the OU defense at safety. Looks like OU's fighting LSU and some others there, but LSU looks like it could be the main competition. Then two 2027 players visited. The first one is Jake Sneed. He's a tight end from Tennessee. He's every bit 6'6", listed about 225. Really good film. Top prospect at tight end. We're starting to get more tight end visitors on campus, better prospects. So things are slightly looking up in terms of tight end high school recruiting for 2026 and 2027. And Jake Sneed would be, OU's got some targets in state that they can look at, but Jake Sneed would be a big target out of state. And then the new big name for 2027 in state is Cooper Hackett from Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. 6'7", 250 pounds. There's an image of him next to Lane Johnson, who was on campus for a visit, taking some time off and coming back to see OU do spring practice. They got a photo together, and he's as tall as Lane Johnson, and Lane Johnson's is 6'7". So Cooper has a long way to go to be 330 pounds like Lane Johnson, but he's definitely that big. So he was named the number 19 player in the nation for 2027 by On3.com. He's got some good rankings by other services, but obviously On3 has gone way above everybody else and made him the number 19 player in the nation, 5-star, future 5-star, top 3 offensive tackle in the nation. So it's good that OU's getting him on campus after all this publicity, because he's getting offers from everybody. Everybody wants him to come visit Oregon, Notre Dame, Ohio State, you name it. So OU doing a good job getting him on campus right after he made that, right after he received that ranking, and he seemed to be having a good time on campus. So obviously meeting Lane Johnson was probably not a bad move by the Sooners. The previous weekend, Deacon Schmidt, the 2026 offensive tackle, visited. He's like 6'5", 300, 4-star. Colorado really wants him, but he's been pretty heavy and consistent with his connections and mentioning OU. Then Desmond Green, who is just a massive man mountain of a kid, 6'5", 340 plus maybe, from South Carolina. He also visited. He would be a big-time, he's a 4-star player. He would be a big-time addition to the interior O-line group. OU obviously continuing to push there, pushing for an official visit in June, which is pretty much scheduled. So kind of a surprise that he made it to Norman on his own dime, but just a very positive sign. And also Noah Best was back on campus, the offensive guard, offensive center prospect from Midlothian. He's around 6'4", 290, looks lean at 6'4", 290, easily can carry over 300 pounds. He's a 4-star, depending upon what service you're looking at. And he's been to OU any number of times, and OU's heavily pushing for his signature. So that's a recap of the most recent visitors. We have just a couple other pieces of other random recruiting news and a couple of other new offers for 2026. So first, the other recruiting news. Toa Katoa, the huge offensive guard from Allen, Texas, that OU's been recruiting pretty much, since he was at the OU summer camp last summer. He's down to OU, SMU, and A&M. I have to admit, it's a bit of a surprise that Texas or Tech didn't make his top lists. It's probably an OU SMU battle, and OU has lots of connections with Allen. He's made connections with Bill. He would be he's 6'4", 350, and looks like he's 6'4", 320 or something like that, and he moves, incredibly well for a huge guy. And then OU target Jake Krull, who I think might actually be at the Crimson Combine. Has been recently re-ranked by 2 services. He's now the number 27 player in the nation by Rivals, putting him right on the fringe of their 5-star territory. But he also got ranked the number 21 player in the country by ESPN with a 5-star rating. So Jake has dominated combines and camps all spring. He's 6'3", 235 range, and has just been beating up huge offensive tackles and talented, highly rated offensive tackles at every combine event he goes to, pretty much. So, nice to see, and he's, OU's probably fighting for probably maybe Miami and FSU are probably 2 places that might end up in Krull's top 5. Maybe Ohio State again. But I think OU's in a firm position in his top 2 or 3. Then OU has recently made 2 more 2026 offers. The first one is Danny Odom, a cornerback from Orlando, Florida. He's 6'2", 175-pound range. He has fantastic film, very good in coverage, not willing to be physical in the run game. And he got that offer, and within a week, he was on campus. He was on campus this weekend. That information comes from a Southwest Florida national writer for Rivals who posted it on Twitter. This could be a story to watch because Odom has the length. If you sign Gilbert, who's like 5'11", 170, and you were to pick up a second cornerback in Odom, who at 6'2", has got a bigger frame, longer, those 2 would be a very nice complement. So I think this is a story to track because there's no other big cornerbacks that look like they're really in play for OU right now. The cornerback position has been tough to figure out who OU's really going to be involved with. Then at tight end, OU offered Roman Voss from Minnesota. He's 6'5", 225, top 200 composite. Fantastic film, comfortable playing inline or flexed out, really good athlete, plays a lot of sort of belldozer. As he plays a lot of sort of shotgun running quarterback, very belldozer-like, to harken back to Blake Bell's time at quarterback for OU. No word if he's going to visit. He's a top 200 composite. I'd like to think OU didn't just make this offer out of the blue without some aims in trying to get Mr. Voss on campus and to push and try and perhaps make him the second tight end in the class. So it's been a little slow. I think that's about to break. We're about to have a lot more news going on, especially portal and May recruiting. I think will be very, very interesting. So keep an eye on here. We'll have podcasts every week with the news starting, especially with the portal news starting to kick in. So thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and don't forget to leave a rating. Or if you're on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And finally, just one last reminder, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360817 to subscribe for more recruiting content on Sooners 360 on Patreon. That Patreon site directly supports this podcast. It keeps this podcast free. And everyone, thanks again for listening, and we'll be back next week.